Hi everyone and welcome back. When running a restaurant, anyone could be faced with some issues like which table ordered that wine or where is table 5? And you can stop asking because no, Stealthy Wood won't open a restaurant. No, stop begging me. I won't. I wouldn't even if Superman was asking me. But don't cry. I will show you how you can. I know, I'm too kind. Well, using Odoo as we do at Stealthy Wood will help you handle the problems I highlighted before. In fact, the point of sale app allows us to personalize a bird's eye view of the restaurant and register all payments from customers simply by clicking on their tables. By doing so, it won't only lead to time saved, but will also help avoid any possible lack of organization between team members, so that waiters won't be running from table to table like headless chickens anymore. So let's see how to make a restaurant's life easier using Stealthy Wood's database. All right, here I am on my database. Let's go to the point of sale application and open our restaurant or bar. So we're going to go to configuration, point of sale, and to create a new restaurant or bar, we simply have to click on the create button, but I went ahead and did this. So let's open up our restaurant or bar configurations. So first of all, let's click on edit. Now I'm not going to name my restaurant/bar. So I'm actually going to edit this. So we're going to have Stealthy Sips. Okay, so in fact, this is going to be more of a bar than a restaurant. And we also want to be sure we have this option, is a bar/restaurant activated? Okay, this is going to allow us to activate some extra features that are specific to a bar or a restaurant that are really useful. Okay, so once we have this checked, we can then activate a couple of other things. So here I have activated order line notes, which will of course allow me to add notes on the order lines. Pretty self-explanatory. And then on the left, I activated table management. So from here, I'm going to be able to add floors to my POS session. So this might be different areas or different rooms. That depends on your restaurant. Okay, so I have two. I have the bar area and the patio that I created. To manage the floors, we can simply click on floors here. And we can create a new one just like that. So I can say sitting area. This is just an example. And then I'll just choose my point of sale session that I would like to apply this floor to. And then I can start adding tables. So I can say table 1 and define how many seats are there. And then I can keep doing this. But I don't have this sitting area, so we're going to remove this. But know that that is how you create a new floor. Okay, so I have the two here, and I can decide which one should appear first by changing the sequence. So if I want to see the patio first or the bar area. Okay, but now let's go back to our configuration and click on edit again. And what's nice here for this table management before I move on to the next feature is that let's imagine I actually close the patio during winter. And so I don't want it to appear in my POS session because I won't be using it. So it's a bit unnecessary. I can simply remove it here. And once it's reopened, I can add it again. Okay, so it's super easy to design the floors that you have. All right, now we're going to scroll down and I'm going to activate a couple of other really useful options. First one is bill printing. Okay, of course, we want to be able to print a bill to give to our customers before they pay. That's the standard. All right, I also want to allow my customers to be able to split their bill as well, which is just really convenient for them. Okay, so we're going to allow bill splitting. So once we have these nice features saved, we're going to go back to our dashboard and open a new session for Stealthy Sips. So let's click on New Session. All right, once it's loaded, the first thing we're going to see is our bar area. Okay, and I can quickly go to the patio just by clicking on patio here. And so I can go back and forth just like that. But actually, I noticed that the tables that I have here, yeah, it's okay, but this doesn't really look like my bar. So I need to edit this so that I really have a good idea, a good bird's eye view of what my bar actually looks like. So I'm going to click on this little pencil here. I'm going to go ahead and start editing some of these tables. So this whole section right here, it looks pretty good, but I don't actually have two circle tables here. In fact, it's just two couches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change first the shape because couches aren't circular. So I'm going to click on square here, and then I'm going to change the size as well. Okay, make it a bit smaller. I'm going to do the same for the other. Okay, so you can really design the tables to be displayed here as they actually appear in your restaurant. So if you have a circle table, a square table, you can change the size as well, which is really convenient because you can really design the floor here as you have in your restaurant. Okay, but actually I want it to be clear that these are couches and not tables, so I'm going to rename these. So I'm going to click on the A, and I'm simply going to say couch 1, okay. And we're going to do the same for the second couch, couch 2. All right. But not only that, I also want to define how many people can sit on these couches. Of course, it really depends on how big the couch is, but these aren't too big. So I'm going to click on this little person and say that there can only be 2 people at each couch. Okay, so for number of seats, I change it to 2. All right, I'm going to move this up a bit. Okay, looks good. All right, and once I've done that, there's something else that's really bothering me. In fact, these couches won't be handled by the same waiter as all of these other tables, and I want that to be clear. So I'm going to color code my tables by section. So what I want to do is change the color of the table. So once I have it selected, I'm going to click on this little color icon, and I'm going to change the color just like that. Okay, so with just a few clicks, I've already changed the design of the layout here a lot, which is really convenient. Now, I also know that I want to create a new table, not so much a table, but I want to create a display for my bar. So I'm just going to click on the little plus right here. Okay, that way I can create and add a new table. My bar is not that big. I'm going to add it to the top, rename it, of course, to bar. Click OK, and 10 people can sit here. So I will say 10, and then OK. All right, and I also know that table 6, it doesn't actually exist, so I want to delete that. You just click on the little trash bin and confirm. Okay, but let's imagine later on I say, okay, table 6, it didn't exist, but it's not a bad idea to have a table there. And it's going to be exactly the same size with the same amount of people as these tables. So instead of just creating a new one, I can duplicate a table that already exists by clicking on the duplicate button. Okay, and what's nice is that it's going to have a name based on the sequence of the table you duplicated. So that was T5, and here we have T6. All right, what's also cool here is that we can see how many seats are at each table. So for my couches, I can hold 2 people. For this table here, it's 4, which seems a bit low. So let me go ahead and change that right now. We'll say 8. Okay, so I can quickly have a good idea of what the table actually looks like, how many people can sit there, and of course, the table numbering, which is really important for waiters. Someone might come up and say, you have some new guests at table 5. You want to be able to quickly see which table that is. All right, now before I move on, I'm going to change the color of my bar as well, because it's also going to be considered a different section. Now, if I don't have any table selected, what's really nice is I can actually change the background color of the POS session here. So I actually want this to be blue. I think the gray is a bit bland. I want the colors to pop. All right, and there we have a beautiful bird's eye view of our bar area. All right, now that I've designed that and have seen how easy it is to design that, I'm actually going to close the editing option. So I'm going to click on the pencil again, and then I can go ahead and start accepting some customers and selling some items. So first of all, let's go ahead and say that someone comes in, they sit on the couch, and they would like to order something. So all we have to do is click on the table, in this case, the couch. All right, and they want to order, let's say, a fancy cocktail. So I'm simply going to click on a fancy cocktail. Now it's just one person, and here I have one guest, but if I have more than one guest, I can simply click on guests and specify the number. Okay. All right, so he wants a fancy cocktail. That's great. Okay, we're ready to go for that. We can click on order to send the order. And then we're going to go, we have 2 other guests who come in and they just want to sit at a 2-person table. So I put them over here, T3. Okay, let's say someone wants to order a fancy cocktail as well, one of our most popular, and the other person just wants to order a water. So, okay, no problem. You have the 2, and we're also going to specify the guests here. Okay, we know that 2 people are sitting at this table. All right, and then we go back to the bar area. In the meanwhile, our person who was sitting on the first couch, they realized that they actually had kind of a draft from the door and they wanted to move to the other couch. But we want to accurately see who is sitting where when we're looking at our floor plan here. So I'm going to simply transfer the order to another table. So I'm going to click on transfer here and then choose where the customer went. If I go back, I'll now see that that customer is at couch 2 rather than couch 1. So that's super easy and simple. Okay, now let's go back to our other guests. Okay, so in fact, one of them ordered a fancy cocktail, but I haven't actually ordered the items yet. So let's click on the fancy cocktail. They told me that they want the fancy cocktail, but they don't want any alcohol. So we're just gonna simply make a note. Okay, I'm gonna say without alcohol, and then click on OK. And then when I send that order, it's going to be printed in the bar area, and my bartender will be able to see that they don't want alcohol in the fancy cocktail and rather make a mocktail. Okay, so we'll order this. They get their drinks, they're perfectly satisfied, and then they say, okay, actually you can just go ahead and give us the bill. I think we'll be ready to pay soon, just so that we can enjoy these drinks at our leisure and then leave whenever we're ready to go. So I say, okay, no problem. And I click on bill in order to print the bill and give it to them. Okay, and then click OK. Then let's say they're ready to pay, but actually they want to split the order. They only want to pay for what they ordered themselves. So I can go ahead and split the order. No issue, no problem. So let's click on split. One person wants to pay for the fancy cocktail. Okay, so let's make the payment. All right, they're going to pay with their credit card, and we're going to go ahead. It's done. We can print the receipt for just what they paid for, which is really nice. And then we can go back and we can have the second person pay for the rest. We see that there's only one guest left because the first guest, of course, paid their share. And then we can process the payment. Let's say cash with a $5 bill. And then we're going to go ahead and validate this. And again, we're going to be able to print that receipt for that specific customer and then move on to the next order. Okay, so as you can see, it's super easy to organize your bills, split, add notes to the order lines, and do many other things with Odoo POS. And I was easily able to go from one order to the next by simply clicking on the tables. Because, for example, I processed their entire order, but I still have my first customer who's just hanging out, chilling, enjoying his fancy cocktail. But now he's ready to pay, so let's print the bill. And then we're going to make the payment also with cash, a $10 bill, and then we'll validate. All right, so it's so easy to do so many cool things with Odoo POS. All right, but now let's imagine that it's the end of the day. We're ready to close up shop. We click on close, confirm, and then we're going to close the session and validate or post the entries. Just like that. So it's so easy to design your restaurant in your shop, and I'm sorry that Stealthy Wood isn't going to open up a restaurant for real, but now you know how you can open up a restaurant for yourself using Odoo. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching, and if I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.